Aloha. I wanted to make a quick video and focus in for a minute on the differences between the creative intelligence and the destructive intelligence. I reference it a lot, but I wanted to kind of expand on one particular video and relate it to how the storylines within the storylines are, just as you can see the news and all this other stuff, the mainstream distractions, the university expansion, the NASA programming, all of this stuff is like a Punch and Judy show. It's a big distraction to keep you from accessing your maximum potential, your internal fire, your space that is beyond your balances, your soul and spirit balance, spiritual balances that are beyond the external reality. This system is designed to keep us focused on the external reality. This is why I come down so hard on the so-called flat earth community when they talk about only the sciences and only the physical reality perspectives of this shift in consciousness, when you're starting to realize that people who are no longer allowing the grid itself to present to them their version of reality, they're in fact tapping into their consciousness, tapping into their intuition, tapping into their connections, their energy spaces, their balances, their soul journey, their connections with creator or creative intelligence or God or whatever you want to call it, in order to exist in this reality out beyond the limitation grid and the separation grid and the divide and conquer grid. And a lot of people reference stuff like duality and light versus dark and this versus that, and we have so many different distractions that are out there and other styles that keep us from really looking at what is at our source, what is at our essence, what our true connections really are. So you can implode yourself or you can explode yourself. You can implode yourself and completely separate yourself from the collective storyline in a positive sense or a negative sense, however you want to do it, or you can explode into that collective storyline in a positive sense or a negative sense. A positive sense would be dedicating your life to the betterment, to the understanding, to whatever it is that it's ultimately all an experience. It's all for the better from the individual perspective. But from the observational perspective, we can let this stuff implode us, or we can become aware of the information in the storylines and shift the reality from the internal space and have it manifest in the external space. And the separation grid has created these programs for us to either be distracted, ignore it, rationalize it, or put it in some kind of box, as long as we're kept in this limbo reality, as long as we are not understanding that we are, in a sense, like multi-dimensional beings in one physical reality. When you can understand that you have a space that is everlasting, that doesn't die, your spirit, your spark, your fire, your soul, and you also inhabit a physical reality. You also inhabit a physical vessel. So when we come into this physical reality in this physical vessel, the trick is for the tricksters, the trick magic, the backwards magic that creates the control grid and the haves and the have-nots, is to have you so focused on the physical reality, so separated from your infinite space, your maximum potential, your true connections to spirit, that you start to worship the physical reality. You start to worship this program, and beyond that, you give your power away, physical reality and your spirit, your soul access to the illusion itself, whether that be by ignorance, whether it be by distraction or illusion, or consciously engaging in it in all hopelessness and saying, you know what, this is what it's all about, and this is what voting is. Voting is that space to where you are engaged in a ritual of life force energy that is hopeless. This is why it's starting to become blatant now, at the towards the end of this power grid, in seeing this is why Obama's campaign was all about hope. Before that, it wasn't about hope. That's like a broad spectrum thing to be talking about. Before that, it was very specific. Like these presidents before Obama were talking about very specific things. But when it gets all watered down and people start connecting and realizing the real stuff that's going on, then you got to get deeper into the emotional grid, deeper into the depths of what the storylines that are going on. So that's why they sold hope. That's why they sold the so-called first black president. This is why they're moving their next agenda is to go into the so-called first woman president, or an entire implosion of the system itself, with Trump so-called being not a part of the system, and selling just, they're both deeper layers of the illusion. It doesn't matter. They're both the same hands being dealt, just in a different style. So it doesn't really matter what happens. And in that space, it's up to the individual to really say, okay, now what do we do? Like, what am I going to do individually for myself? Where am I going to tap into something beyond this artificial reality for myself? And how I break it down is that, this is basically what it's based upon. What I wanted to do this video on is, we have no less than two storylines that are going on when you are born into this reality. You have your genetic storyline, your genetic codes, and you have your soul journey. Your soul is your direct connection to spirit. That is the essence that you are, that your parents don't make. Like it's not necessarily directly related to your genetic storyline, and that's that reality. So that I relate that to like the negative charge of the anchor space, the birthing of your reality that is equal to your soul journey, from this perspective. But that space, that energy that you are, that exists beyond it, because this vessel has to be a divine vessel in order to inhabit a divine spirit. So in order to inhabit that spirit, it has to have a meaning and a purpose. And that meaning and purpose gets flipped upside down and backwards when people who are energies or entities who are a part of a destructive intelligence, which was born within the creative intelligence, decides to utilize that magic to work against the people, work against the system, so it can make itself out to be the owners or the kings and queens within an out of balance and destructive system. So it's taking the magic, the storyline of the magic, and manipulating it to work only one-sided and one way. And since we are such complex beings, there are so many different ways that we can be distracted and manipulated to exist outside of our natural spaces, and be convinced into a so-called normal relationship, not only with ourselves, not only with our family and soul group, but with the collective as a whole. So when we're born here, you're automatically stamped with a birth certificate, a social security number, into the Maritime Admiralty system, locked into the grid, locked into the globe model, locked into the so-called evolutionary theory, and told this is what your evolution is about. This is where you come from. This is who you are. These are your potentials and your limitations. This is it. You're done. Go to school, shut your mouth, and just be a slave to the system. And then when you're done being a slave, you just die, and that's it. That is the depths of the darkest separation program, when you understand that you have the potential that is a reflective spark of the Most High. And when people are totally flipping that script and worshiping the physical vessel, and no longer even understanding what the balances and the potentials of the physical vessel are, but in fact only, and the spirit, but in fact only looking at one portion. So this is why people get so stuck on like titties and ass and and the physical looks, and love is based upon like diamonds are a girl's best friend. Like everything is physical based. Relationships all this stuff, all the essence of the individual comes secondary. Like back in the day, they used to be, and even today, people still think like this. Like, oh yeah, like she married well. Good thing she married well. That's a good family. Like same thing in like Alice in Wonderland. It was all about like marrying a lord. You don't want to turn out like Aunt Imogen and being on like it's this whole idea of reality that is the colonial based system. It's no different than it's a reflection of itself down to your relationships from your parents. This is why parents get this artificial ego of, oh, you're my kids and you have to since you're my kid, you have to do what I did, or you have to do this, and you have to maintain this kind of perspective, this lifestyle, in order to be successful, in order to be like your parents, do what your parents didn't do, but be better, but still within the system. And then that taking over space of that judgment and expectation on the kids, as if these individuals made these kids. Like, no, you didn't make this soul. That's what the artificial ego program wants you to convince you that it did. The soul exists on its own journey. These kids have their own journey on one sense, and they have a genetic anchoring to the program itself. And you can either expand or contract into expanding into a love and a connection, or contract into the fear of being different, or being separated from the norm, in order to truly tap into what is natural for you. This is why people are split between worlds right now, and this is how I'm seeing the split overall with stuff like the Mandela effect. People who are locked into the artificial grid and the artificial intelligence that creates your reality, creates your information, the Google mind, the Hive mind, the cloud mind. This is why they're creating all these systems to reproduce an artificial, a generic version of what you are already capable of, what you're born into and existing as. And that manipulation grid is based upon fear. This is why you're surrounded by war. The local news wants to scare the shit out of you into a mentality that will implode your essence, every layer of your expression. This is why the arts are taken out of the system, in order to create beings and a collective being that will never get out of the king and queen space, like the colonial grid itself. So it creates this individual monarchy, where you're just like the nobles back in the day, so-called nobles who were working for the king of England, had like ownership for titles and land, and then they can do all this stuff, institute all these laws on the people, and tax the shit out of the people. People are living in straight up poverty, dying from sickness and disease, having nothing. But these nobles had this illusory power over them. They've taken that noble space and have just created the illusion for everybody to act like they're nobles. Like they have these people who are so-called owning land in the United States. That's no different than the nobles owning land in Scotland, like in Braveheart. Like those people who were just totally bowed down to the king of England for a bucket of gold and some titles to land, and just like said, oh yeah, this is our reality. That's not freedom at all. It's an illusion. So everybody, the American dream is like the noble space, the so-called noble space. It is a bowing down to the king of England in order to be a part of that program, so you don't rock the boat. And it's gotten so intellectually intertwined within our reality with technology and the industrial age and the fear program of the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the constant triggering of the slave program, this whole power grid from the early, like the Crusades time frames, the early kings and queens who just conquered everybody. Look all over these military bases all over the world. That's no different than the kings of England going and just taking over people's land. It's the same stuff. And the ultimate thing is to shock you so much into the fear space that you have no power. And the lack of information, this is what the university system and the public education system is. The lack of information is what keeps you from going into the depths of your maximum potential that will exist outside of the control grid. And this is why we are bombarded by the mainstream media. This is why they make a joke out of this stuff with the puppet games. The puppet games of Hillary and Donald Trump, and the television as a whole, the news as a whole, instead of just the regular Punch and Judy show that they would get everybody entertained by and then actually kill people by. It's like little kid games and truly like puppets, and you're really not tapping into your maximum potential at all. So we have these balances of positive and negative, light and dark, electric and magnetic, and these systems, they get manipulated through our subconscious. Like before, they could just institute a tax on you and just take you out or take your family out. But people have so much information. They're still doing that today. But people have so much information that one little spark would let people know, hey, this is not a fucking game. You don't have to fall for these programs. You can take care of yourselves. You just have to figure out how it's going to work outside of the hopeless program. And this is the point we're reaching right now, and why I harp down so much on the so-called flat earth community, because they're just trying to steer this shit into another control grid, talking about, oh, I can't wait till the flat earth goes mainstream. Anything coming out of that system is going to be a magic spell. Any and everything is going to be like that. And these systems, this is not checkers, this is chess on every level. And you can see that it's not just one storyline. It's every storyline going on at one time. And once you are caught up either in the lightest of the light or the darkest of the dark, you are separated. If you are split and you are outside of your fire, which is the balance of both. And the norm outside of that is nature, that is natural. The balance is the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the understanding of both, and the expression of both harmonically. The disharmonics, the desensitization, the distraction grid is meant to keep you from touching that balance, understanding that balance, and expressing that space. And also the masses get caught up in the distraction mostly, which is that limbo space. So you can either get caught up in the limbo of love, you can get love and light, you can get caught up in the limbo of fear, which is just self-destruction and outward destruction. You get caught up in the limbo of ignorance and just arguing about shit that you don't even know, information that didn't even come from you or your intuition at all. Just defending somebody else's program, defending shallow layers of reality. This is what politics is. This is what all the university system is as a whole. The alternative news, all that. You can get caught up in the limbo of distraction, which is the mainstream media, music, movies, those shallow versions of reality. Get caught up in the limbo of hopelessness, to where you're just like, well, I'm just going to keep my head down and do what I got to do. And vote, and then that's it. That's hopeless. When you can't think for yourself. This is that program as a whole. You can't think for yourself. You can't feel for yourself. You can't live for yourself. You're living for a program. You're living for the city. Like Stevie Wonder was talking about, this is that whole program. You're not even living for your soul. You're living for the illusion, not even for your physical reality. You're living for the illusion, the grid illusion of the physical reality. Not even an out of balance physical reality, when you could have a balance of your physical reality and have a balance of your soul driven reality. So when we get caught up in the mom and pop version of how to live your lives, which is all everybody from old school generations are having to deal with what they had to deal with when they chose to come in this reality decades before us, these younger generations now. But we have a different perspective, a different understanding of what's going on, and we can do more because we don't have as much luggage and garbage that's sitting in our trailers. Not to mention the fact that there's so much energy that is available to us now that they have processed, even the old school generations have access to information and have processed a lot of that luggage that they weren't aware of, a decade ago or a few decades ago. Because every move that the destructive intelligence makes, it reveals itself. And then when it reveals itself, it might appear to be stronger, but it's also allowing the individuals to access a deeper layer of their own energy, which is the creative intelligence. Because the destructive intelligence was created by the creative intelligence. The destructive intelligence exists within the creative intelligence. But the creative intelligence came first. It had to create. It had to create something. And this something, for this perspective, this is an extreme something. We have the depths of the extreme darkness and the depths of the extreme lightness all in one individual experience, and the collective experience here on the earth plane, when you can understand people do some of the worst shit that you can imagine here, and you have angelic frequencies simultaneously within your bloodstream, within your experience, within your actions, within your feelings, within your emotions. You have that action, that essence there. But when you are so contracted by the surroundings, then you miss out on your maximum potential. So the destructive intelligence also creates. You can learn from fear. You can learn from this is the balance within this reality. You can learn from the destruction. This is part of the frequencies to keep expanding, to keep, instead of getting caught up in a linear version of reality, you expand and contract and expand and contract. And when that system is taken advantage of to create another version of God, which is the university system, the scientism professors, the whole mainstream colonial system, the kings and queens who are trying to rule over you, they rule over you with your separation, your illusions within the system. And as long as they play by the rules and manipulate the program and allow you to cast spells upon yourself, which is the voting program, which is the birth certificate program, which is the Constitution and all this other stuff that we think is for us, it's not for us. It's for the distraction, the separation. Same thing that happened when Columbus came over and tried to sell religion and all that other stuff to the native peoples. It was not for the essence. It was not for the heart and soul. It was a manipulation. And this being the bridge between the lightest of the light and the darkest of the dark outside of the physical reality, then people get sucked down into the darkest perspectives of their spaces. You are the living essence of that most high space that is here to consciously balance out the potentials of the darkness that exist in the earth plane and within your vessel experience in this ocean of reality. So you choose which reality, and as long as you're caught up in the illusion or the rationale or the separation of it all, then you're convincing yourself by the false realities that are portrayed to you by these magicians and these puppeteers to experience your reality from a certain perspective, which inherently empowers the program itself, the program of separation, the program of a destructive intelligence, which is the grid itself. And so this is why I'm still making those videos in reference to the flat earth community. It really pissed me off. They're talking about, oh yeah, I can't wait till the mainstream picks up on the flat earth. That everything will be okay. The fuck it will. It'll be an extension, an expansion. And if you set people up to start celebrating something, that'll be no different than when people started voting, or clapping and celebrating and crying for Obama when he was the first black president. The flat earth, or whatever the next selling agenda is, what if they just start selling the new age agenda in this new world order space and say, this is real change. It doesn't matter how it comes or what they sell it with. It will be a deeper expansion, a deeper distraction of the whole of your internal and collective potentialities. It'll be a show. And if you are setting people up to be a part of that show, you're no different than telling people back in the day in 2008, hey, you should vote for Obama, because that's real change. That's some real stuff we can hope for. That's the same thing when, I can't wait till, the Young Turks start talking about flat earth, or CNN starts sharing the information we've been sharing on the internet about flat earth. That's going to be amazing. Shut that shit up. That's some bullshit. It's ridiculous. It's no different than the political system. It's a trick. It's a straight up manipulation game. And it'll be an extension of the program, because you'll be inherently starting out on crutches and in a powerless space. These kings' lands and these kings' titles that people have now, calling themselves the American dream and being successful and having these, that's what the degree program is. The university system. You have a degree from the King of England. You have a master's degree. You have a doctorate from the King of England. You have a nice house in Beverly Hills from the King of England on Native American or Mexican land. This is all part of the extension of the colonial program. We don't see these programs being manipulated in our everyday realities because we are still thinking linearly. And not everybody is going to realize this stuff. Some people are going to solely choose that program, and that's their choice. Maybe that's all they came here to do, is to feel that out and then move on. But there are people out there who are expanding and looking for information for themselves to expand more, and who are not going to get caught up in the hopeless program, and who will understand when I say stuff like you have a genetic experience and a genetic timeline, and you have a soul timeline that you are born. When you're born into, you have a soul and a body. Your connection to your family is your genetic timeline that has to be experienced in some kind of way. That was part of your chosen reality. You also have a soul experience that is based upon your individual balances, your individual expression, your choices between yourself, your higher self, and the Most High. And those balances are working with each other. Every single decision of every day that you make, every time you wake up, it adjusts. Every time you make a new thought, it adjusts. Every time you decide to do something and decide not to do something else, that you're expanding all of those parts of yourself, and that's the shockwave through the collective. This is the expansion of the whole. It is outside of any kind of contraction grid that is meant to close off your maximum potentials. And this political scene, this new age agenda, this artificial new age Super Soul Sunday, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Western yoga, fake ass versions of truly tapping into yourself, this rationale program, this distraction grid, the ignorant space, the limbo reality, the hopelessness, the codependency program is meant to keep people giving their power away to the king king and queens of England. This is out. We have to expand outside of fiat currency, expand outside of the illusions and the distractions, outside of these artificial lands and titles on other people's space. That is the separation from humanity. If you're okay, voting is just, you're voting for that's okay. You're voting for smallpox blankets. You're voting for the non-recognition of the treaties that were promised by your government to the Native Americans. Every single last one of them. You're voting to keep the political prisoners in prison. You're voting to keep all these people who are arrested for a plant, for cannabis. Keep voting is voting for them to stay in the system, in the program. And there are way too many intelligent individuals that can think of a program or some kind of outside of this reality system that will get these people out of prison, that will get individual. First, you have to release yourself from the hopeless and the codependent program, of yourself and the collective. And if individuals are not empowered to do that, then we're just going to be following whatever kind of program gets put out there in front of us. And that's what makes this whole flat earth community and the CERN stuff with the Mandela effect, all those university connected programs, it makes it like you got to take a second look at it and question, like, what the hell is going on here? Like, it's too convenient. And you have to observe the limitations. And if those limitations extend over a certain amount of time, then you can see that that's part of a program that is not for the benefit of the expansion of the creative intelligence, but is actually setting up the platform and the foundations for the destructive intelligence to root itself and expand and further separate individuals from their maximum potential, and also expand the destructive intelligence puppet strings. This is what that whole mainstream New Age and mainstream flat earth stuff is all about. Mainstream CERN stuff, talking about dimensions and Mars and all that stuff. That's all a destructive intelligence grid to give your power away to illusions. So I just wanted to share this video real quickly in reference to these balances and how this show gets played. This extension of the program gets manipulated to work against itself, to be one-sided and to hate itself. This is why this is a totally patriarchal system. It destroys the divine feminine in order to own both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. To own all of the balances, you just have to divide and conquer one side. And that's what's going on right now. And once we understand it's us fighting ourselves. You're so disconnected from the system, caught up in subliminal and subconscious messages, separated from your dreams, separated from your true experiences, your balances, your electric and magnetic experiences, journeys, potentials, separated from your expansion and contraction process and healing space, that we don't realize that we have more potential than what's locked in this little out of balance experience. Like I said, you can learn. This is why they say the doctor in Star Trek, Bones, was saying, like, fear is what keeps us alive. And when he was talking to Spock, I think it's like, what the fuck what's wrong with you? But people are like, yeah, that's what the program is based upon. Fear is what, that ego, that artificial ego, totally locked into the Starship Enterprise. It's a bloody joke. And the only people that are bleeding are the ones who are just not privy to the information or innocent of it all, or just, and then this is how it's always been. And then that fire gets dumbed down, and then we just lose all hopelessness and say, oh, it's just about, I'm just going to do what I got to do. The time for that's a wrap. Can't be just living for all these fake titles in this fake version of reality. We have an actual natural space. You don't have to sacrifice your natural connections and your natural vibrations, your connections to creative intelligence for what is normal. If you choose what is normal over what is natural, then that's your choice. And that's what people are doing today when you're voting, when you're getting caught up in that space. That's your choice. That's your experience. You will eventually face your natural experience at some time. The earlier the better, because it'll pile up on you and it'll hit you harder later on down the road because you've been constantly looking the other way. But these balances exist, and when they get caught out of, when they get manipulated out of your natural capacity, then that's when it can take over not only an individual. You can see in people in jacked up relationships where you'd be like, why is that person with that person? He just beats her. He just treats her certainly. It's an actual dopamine drip. It's a drug, or it's such a beating down of the fire that they just say, oh well, I love that person, or it's a convincing thing. It's a puppet strings. It's a hopeless mentality, and that's what's gone on. This PTSD reality. So that's basically all I wanted to talk about in reference to this video right now. Just quickly kind of make a quick video and focus in on that perspective. So thank you for joining me. Until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.